right, folks, that was a loop. Sorry about that. Here is the deal. This is a special edition of Politics Done Right late night. The reason I'm doing this late night is because Super Tuesday is tomorrow. In a few hours, Super Tuesday will begin. But more importantly, people are those who haven't yet voted. They heard a whole lot of bloviation from the mainstream media over the last few hours where they have decided that they were going to determine what was going to occur. That somehow this race is now a two-person race. This race is now just between Bernie Sanders and Joe Biden. And that's what they're going to will it to be. And they're doing everything in their power to maximize the amount of coverage that Biden is receiving. Okay, great. So we understand that the plutocracy, we understand that the mainstream media is on to the game. Now, before the interview that Lawrence O'Donnell just did with Biden was one of those interviews that would drive anybody who knows anything about healthcare crazy. And it's a reason that I'm on here today because I want to play pieces of that interview, break in, talk about what's wrong with what he said, the lies that he's saying, the misinformation that he's given. But before I preface that, I want to say Americans suffer in silence. A lot of people are going through healthcare issues in silence because nobody knows what they're going through. Nobody knows the kind of billings that they're going to have. Nobody knows that they can't pay these bills. Well, I'm going to tell you, first of all, several quick experiences. A friend of mine called me up, Egberto, what are you doing for your health care? Because he knows that I've always had my own health care with my own private company, etc., etc., etc. And he said, I just retired from a major corporation and I'm looking for health care going to Obamacare. It's costing me $2,000, he's 60 years old, $2,000 a month with a $10,000 deductible. Okay, wow. 60 years old, just left a big company and realized what healthcare really costs. You know, we have Joe Biden here talking to Lawrence O'Donnell about all these great things that his minor tweaking is going to solve, which means nothing because this private healthcare insurance, what they do is they continue to find ways to get you, and he's lying to the American people right before Super Tuesday so that they can believe that they don't have choices, they don't have options. I have a wife with lupus. For the longest time, while getting the insurance on my own, I watched it go way past inflation for years. When Obamacare came, it saved us because for 1 minute, things got the increase in prices subsided. But then the whole shebang started over again. And why? Because it was a poorly written bill by the insurance companies. Ask yourself why when Obamacare was passed, the insurance stocks went through the roof. Ask yourself what that meant. Who do you think were paying those insurance companies? The government. And who pays the government? You do. So that was yet another transfer. Obamacare was a compromise between neoliberals who said we had to keep these people who are ripping you off alive. That's what they said. They didn't put it in those words, but that's what they did. Obamacare was another way for private insurance companies to rip you off. Women who have mammograms today, they go have a mammogram, and if they find a speck in that mammogram, it suddenly no longer is just a test for a good woman, a well woman's test. It suddenly becomes something you have to pay for. You know, all the things insurance companies did, for all those tests that are all negative that come out fine, you don't have to pay for it. But any test that you do that turned out to find something wrong with you, you pay. You know, there are so many things written within Obamacare and all these laws because it was written by insurance companies that hurt Americans. Private insurance companies hurt Americans. But yet, Biden wants you to believe that he's on your side when he says what Bernie is talking about, what Elizabeth is talking about with Medicare for all, that somehow that is unachievable. It's going to cost more money than what the real thing is going to cost. So what I want to do right now And by the way, beforehand, I said I had a wife with lupus. I also said we've always had insurance. We were lucky that my company then was making the kind of money. When I gave up the company to do this, my wife decided to go ahead and work for the school district, got insurance for the family. Thank you to my wife for doing that so that I could work on what I think is existential to our being in this country. Having health care for all, Medicare for all. My daughter, who is in med school right now, gonna finish med school with likely $500,000 in debt. Even as I paid her undergrad, she will end up with $500,000 to be a doctor. You ask, why do we talk about wanting tuition-free college, pay it forward college, education for doctors so that they don't have to bilk people for their salaries. You ask why. Those are the real reasons why. It's not the doctor's fault that they have to try to work so hard to pay their student loans. They're $500,000 to $1 million. She told me, Dad, my friend, so far for his medical degree, he's at $1 million. People, Bernie Sanders is not asking for anything impossible here. He's not asking for anything impossible. The money is there. What we have right now is a poorly executed transfer of wealth from the many to the few. My daughter just got 28 years old, just got a stroke. Luckily and thankfully, she's doing much better. She lost half of her eyesight. It's down to 85%. That she has 85% vision now. 6 weeks and she's making very good improvement. But she received 3 days worth of her intensive care bill. $72,000 for 3 days. Don't tell me that we don't have a problem in this country. And when you have a Biden and all these centrists out there trying to tell Americans that you're asking for too much, when what you're really asking for is to stop the pilfer, to stop them from ripping you off. That's all you're asking for. Americans work very hard. Very hard. Get on the freeway at 5 in the mornings and don't ever dare tell me that Americans don't work hard. They work hard. But they don't benefit from all the work that they do because of the pilfer from the plutocracy. They use everything that you must have as a way to take it all back, to take it from you. And you build a fortune, or you build a small fortune, and you get at the end of your life, you go into the hospital for care. And that is where most care is spent. And you think you can't afford it, so some people go on Medicaid, and people think, oh, Medicaid pays it all, and then they come for your estate. People, don't buy into it. Super Tuesday is tomorrow. Vote your economic interest, and don't vote your fear. Don't vote your fear that somehow Donald Trump is going to win. Donald Trump will only win if we don't make the case. Those of you who have families that believe in Trump, you have to make the case to them as well. Economic interests. What is your economic interest? Super Tuesday is tomorrow. Do not vote your fears. Let's go into the Biden interview and we'll start to talk about the categorical misinformation and lies being told. Let's go for it, my brothers and my sisters. This, again, I'm doing this at this time of the night because it is existential for many. Americans suffer in silence as these guys come out there with a straight face and lie to you. That is what Sanders talk about a lot. And people, oh, that commie, that social. No, no, no. What he is for. And others on the left is to tell you there is another way. Check this out.
Bernie Sanders says that this is yet another case for Medicare for all. If there was a universal 100% coverage Medicare for all, that anyone would know confidently that they could get off an airplane, feel sick, whatever it is, and go straight in and get tested, and they would not be hit with one of these bills.
They know that under Obamacare. They know that under Obamacare. They know that under the additional Medicare option I provide. You don't need Medicare to be tested for this. You can dictate that that be the case. And under my proposal, you would, in fact, under Obamacare, you would have it for free. And by the way, if you wait for Bernie to be tested, you're talking about 4 years, even to get it passed, if you get it passed, and it's not going to pass in this Democratic Congress.
Notice what he said, and it's not going to get passed in this Democratic Congress. Remember what they've been telling you all along. It's the Republicans' fault that we don't have the right kind of health care. Let me tell you guys the truth. When Obamacare was passed, the reason why, first of all, we didn't get the public option wasn't that the Republicans blocked the public option. It was the Democrats that blocked the public option. The only reason that you hear them talking about, guys, the centrists like Biden talking about public option now is because Medicare for all started to get traction. So their masters, the private insurance company says, oh my God, what are we going to do? Americans are starting to see that Medicare for all is all we got. It's the only thing that will work. So, let's talk. Now the public option is starting to look good because you know what? If you listen to Pete Buttigieg, who just endorsed him, it says, public option because it is Medicare for all for those who want it. But you know what they do? They throw the sick people on the Medicare on the public option and then say, you see how expensive the public option is? Let's go back to the private scheme. Folks, it's a con. It is a con. And we have centrists running the con on you. Obamacare with deductibles that you can, the problem is this. A lot of people are on, that 140 million, well, we'll talk about that after. But a lot of people are on plans where they don't see the deductibles, right? Because it's taken out of their pay. Where they go ahead and they see a copay or what. Look. For those people who really are paying or footing their insurance bill, like we had to do for decades, with my $10,000 deductible, with my $1,500 a month bill, with my copays, there was no copay, there was full pay because how many doctor visits till you got to $10,000? I was giving away $20-something thousand a year in healthcare and not getting it back. I don't mind that, assuming everybody was in a pool together, but that's not the case. The centrists at this point in time are lying to you, and if we fall for it, there will be no change. There will be no change. Personally, this affects me, and it will likely affect all of us at some point in time. Think about it. Like I said, my daughter with a stroke, $72,000 for 3 days in intensive care. People, think about what they're doing to us, and think about a Joe Biden and others like him being the standard carriers trying to tell you we can't afford something that every other country can afford. Countries that are much less rich than we are. Let's be frank, folks. Continuing with his interview.
Number two, after that occurs, you're talking about it taking time to phase in. I forget, depending who you talk to, X number of years on top. Look, this is about now. Right now. And if I'm elected president of the United States, I can get Obamacare that's increased by a public option and making sure no hidden bills, et cetera, reducing drug prices. It's all laid out there. And I've laid out exactly how to pay for it and how I get it done and where the pay for it comes from. And he's talking about a $35 trillion.
That's a lie. And let me explain to you how they make the lie. The lie goes like this. Well, Medicare for all, it's the budget for the government is going to increase by a whole bunch. You know what? That part is true. But here is the deal. What they don't tell you is that premiums that you pay are a must for insurance. If you want insurance and you're paying, like my friend, $2,000 a month, which is $24,000 a year, if you have Medicare for all, he'll pay less than half of that because we have a bigger pool spread throughout the entire country, right? So instead of paying $24,000 to these private insurance companies that will take that money and pay shareholders and pay executives and pay bonuses, that $12,000 go to the government, who becomes the single payer of Medicare for all. That insurance company that my friend has is his master. It tells him what drugs he can take. It tells him what doctors he can see. It tells him everything that he can do based on the insurance he chose. In other words, he got a chance to choose who his enslaver would be. He chose his master. Now, with Medicare for all, your doctor, in a symbiotic relationship with you, says you need this drug, and they have to query nobody to see if, oh, this drug is what you're going to use. You need to see this doctor, you have this issue, and within these parameters, you have no issue. Everybody gets a chance to go to their own doctors, their own medicines, etc., etc., etc. Don't be fooled. Private insurance companies that he sings praises to are nothing but your masters who tell you who you can see. Have you gone, and Americans, answer these questions yourself. Call and make an appointment with a specialist and see if there's a wait, and see if some of these times you have to wait a month. They always talk about, oh, if we have this, you're going to be wait times. It's a lie. It's a lie. There will be no more wait times under Medicare for all than anything else. Think about it, people. Stop allowing these liars to lie to you and make you fearful of somehow, because you choose what's right, that somehow Donald Trump will become president again. No, we're not stupid. Let's go out there and fight for what's ours. Let's do it for a change. Continue in the interview.
$1 billion program. I respect the fact that he wants to do it, but level with the American people. He said in the last debate it's going to increase the tax on employers withholding, but he didn't tell you the other half of that tax is you. It's going to double what you're being withheld on your Social Security tax. And
you know what? Again, Biden, you're lying to the American people. They're not paying premiums anymore. They're not paying co-pays anymore. They're not paying deductibles anymore, Mr. Biden, and you know that. Why? Who is really lying to the American people? You are. You are telling them that they're not going to have a better deal. You are asking them to forget math. You're telling them that if they have on their bill to pay executives, to pay shareholders, and all these other costs that are not there for Medicare for all, you are lying to them when you tell them somehow Medicare for all can be more expensive than that. All the studies that come out on Medicare for all, because again, it is simple math, proves that it is less expensive and it's more expansive. It covers everybody. Your plan does not. And the reason why it does not is simple. Math. Arithmetic. We can't fall for this again. And for all of those who went ahead, and Beto O'Rourke, I am so disappointed in Beto O'Rourke. You could have been a rising star for the American people, for the Texans. You could be a rising star here by being truthful to Americans and saying, we are going. I interviewed you, Beto, and you said to me, and I'll play the interview some other time, that you are for a medical program that covers absolutely everybody. I understood you didn't call it Medicare for all for political reasons, but you claimed that you wanted the same purpose. You cannot have that under the Biden's plan. It is mathematically impossible.
And then you have to, and that only gets you part of the way. Look, people need hope, Lawrence. You know it better than I do. You know it better than I do. They need to know that what their need can be done and is likely to happen and can get done quickly. I can get Obamacare as amended by my proposal for a Medicare option, reducing drug prices, et cetera, passed, and I pay for it. I can get it done immediately.
Obamacare is currently providing coverage to about 20 million people, maybe more, but there's still a solid 28 million people who do not have any health insurance at all. What could you do to close that gap? Medicare for All closes it very clearly. That is a solution for 100% coverage. What is your way of getting to 100% coverage? Those 28 million.
You notice immediately he says 35 trillion. Let me tell you what's the irony. The irony is if we cannot afford to insure everybody, it means that as a society, we are saying we are willing to let some die because we as a society, in as much as we have billionaires that have gotten their billions on your back, that still we would rather have people die than to have them give back some of the monies they made on your back. Understand what these guys are saying. Understand what Biden just said. When Lawrence O'Donnell said Medicare for All is the way to get everyone insured, when he says $35 trillion, whatever it is, assuming that we cannot afford it, if you are saying we won't afford it in as much as we have all those billionaires that the top 1% have more than, I think, 70% of the people below or something like that. If you are going to say that, tell Americans what you're saying. We rather have people die. We rather have people die than to tax the billionaires who's made their monies on your backs. We have to be correct in the way we tell the story. And one of the issues that we don't do is we do not tell Americans the story as we should.
Dollars, which I can tell you how you do it. One of the reasons that's the case is in many states, the Republican governors are not taking advantage of what the Obamacare called for, and that is that 100% coverage for people who qualify for Medicaid, and they'd be able to have it all taken care of. If they can't afford and look, I just came out of a state where there's 200,000 people that in fact are not covered because the governor wouldn't have it happen. That's why I add to my proposal, to Obamacare, I add a public option of Medicare for those who want it. So
now you hear that? Oh, these great, they wrote the bill. They're the ones who wrote the bill in such a manner that you ask the states to opt in to take care of poor people. I want you to really think about that. The way this bill was written told the states, you have the right to opt in if you want to take care of your poor people who are indigent and cannot afford health insurance. That was the compromise Democrats had to make with Democrats to pass a bill. Come on, guys. And are we going to go through with these same Democrats that did that? People say, oh, you have to compromise. Think about this. If we had not compromised on everybody having health care with the Medicaid expansion, we didn't have to call it Medicaid expansion to the Affordable Care Act. We didn't have to do that. We just had to make sure the states had to do it. And guess what would have happened? Americans would see what health care really looked like. But they didn't want that. Like I said, when you go incrementally, you are giving somebody an option to deconstruct what you had constructed. And if you noticed, that is exactly what happened. We said that back in 2009. We had this debate in 2009. Many of us then said, if there's no public option, we're not supporting it. But of course, we coalesced. We went ahead and said, okay, we'll support it. For Obama's sake, we're going to support it. But remember, the flaws were quite there, evident for all to see. One, you asked states to opt in to take care of their poor people, knowing that their evil evil governments that don't give a rat's you know what about poor people. We also went ahead and allowed this, denied the option for a public option that supposedly the reason they didn't want a public option is, when you don't have to pay dividends and shareholder value and all of that kind of stuff, you will always come in cheaper than private insurance. Private insurance make no sense. Private insurance for basic health care makes no sense. You are forcing something. You're simply using something to skim monies away from health care. Some fat cat is sitting at his pool with your premiums, drinking a glass of tea and having a vodka. And some executive is finding a way not to pay your bill, your health care bill, so that they can have a bigger bonus. Please, let's, folks, tomorrow is Super Tuesday. If you're listening to this, share this and make sure other people understand the reason why they must vote for change, why they must vote for transformational change. Let's go ahead and continue, and then we'll finish up after this.
They'd be automatically enrolled in Medicare. Automatically enrolled if they can't afford it. And if they like it and they don't like what they have now and they can afford it, they can buy into the plan. They can buy in, and they can buy into Medicare for all. It's their choice. But what it doesn't do, what Bernie does, he wipes out over 145,000 health care plans that a lot of labor unions have given up salaries for.
Okay, here's the deal. Oh, labor unions have given up salaries for health care. Yeah, they have. They have. So now that if we provide Medicare for all, single payer, no longer can the corporations con their employees into giving them supposedly health care in lieu of wages. Remember, at any time, most employees are not sick, right? So therefore, the deal about giving them a better price in insurance is nothing but a scam. It's a scam to help them even maximize more. Instead of giving everybody wages, they go ahead and say you pay less for insurance. Wow. And then they just have to take out a balloon policy in case their insurance pool gets a little bit sicker than the rest. They're covered. Folks, it's a con. Vote your interests. Vote your economic interests. Do not fall for the con. Biden and all the centrists, the reason they're coalescing around him is the plutocracy is saying, oh my God, it seems like the progressives just may do it. The progressives are getting the message across. I have a message for progressives though. Don't be scared. Don't cower. Lean into it. Lean into policy and tell your friends, your neighbors, your families, your Trumpist sisters and brothers. Let them know what's really, really happening. Because right now, we cannot afford this election. We cannot afford to have another election where all we get is the status quo. Because the status quo is no good for most. Folks, it is no good for most. So please, let's make sure on Super Tuesday to send a message. And this message is not a message for Trump. This is a message for the neoliberal part of the Democratic Party, for the centrist part of the Democratic Party, for the part of the Democratic Party that is not looking out for you. Because everything that you hear Bernie Sanders talk about, everything that you hear Elizabeth Warren talk about is affordable and can be paid for if we ensure that we are not allowing the corporatocracy, the plutocracy, the wealthy to continue to pilfer on us. You have to understand that. Let me finish the interview.
That are very robust plans, and it says they're gone. You cannot have any private insurance. This is a rhetorical question I don't expect you to answer. Do you think there's any possibility of passing a $35 trillion plan without telling anybody who's going to pay for it, doubling the cost of, or actually 10 times the cost of what I'm talking about, $3.5 billion a year, that is going to require doubling the federal budget. I think people are looking for some authenticity, some honesty. I admire Bernie's desire here, but what I'm really disappointed in, the failure to tell the American people how you can get it done. Do you have any rhetorical question? Do you think there's any possibility of passing through a Democratic House of Representatives?
And that is the issue. Do you think it has a possibility of passing through a Democratic House of Representatives? The answer is not the current House of Representatives, but if progressives get the job done, it will be done through people who either are, after seeing what progressives do, will be fearful to slight them. Here's the deal, Brother Biden. Tell the truth. You're absolutely right about that. Tell the truth. Math is absolute. It is impossible for the private health insurance companies to be more effective and cost less than a single-payer Medicare for all system. It is mathematically impossible. And the second thing that you have to come to grips with, if you believe that we can't afford to have everybody insured, that means that you believe that you are willing to let your fellow Americans die. You are saying that we can't afford it, so we let them die, because I don't want to tax those who have made their monies on the backs of the American people. As such, we will make them die. Folks, there's nothing magical about this. This is simple. There's only one way to vote, and that is to vote for progressives who are going to make things better for Americans. There's the only solution. Once again, the only solution is to vote for those who support, in this case, Medicare for all. Anybody that tells you, thank you for that super chat, Senor Da Rosa. Thank you so kindly. And folks, if you want to support what we're doing and making sure we get this message out, please feel free to click on that $ and give us that super chat. Folks, let me tell you, it is imperative. It is imperative. Biden does not tell you the details of his plan himself. So says Gualberto Portela de Rosa. Folks, I want you, I've been on doing this all day. Tomorrow I wanted to do this tonight before Super Tuesday came along. I needed to do this before Super Tuesday came along, because I wanted folks to share and to get this message out. Only vote for people who support Medicare for all. Any other vote is a vote against your economic interests. Any other vote is against, and if you're wealthy with a good insurance plan with the corporations, if you don't vote for Medicare for all, please understand what you're doing. You're saying to my brothers and my sisters, it is okay for you not to have health care and possibly die, because I decide that somehow, we as a rich country do not have the wherewithal to tax billionaires who made their monies on your back, so that all of us can have health care. Folks, this is serious. Right now, the train is on. The mainstream media has to get Biden in. I don't even think Biden is going to make it through the entire campaign with Donald Trump. I think the idea here is to get Biden, and when Biden starts to falter, the party comes in and choose somebody else. But after he gets the nomination, if they have enough pelotas to cheat him at the convention, if it goes to a convention. But folks, let me tell you something. We ought to not let it get there. Those of you who are out there need to make sure it does not get there. There are only two viable candidates as I see right now, and that is either Bernie Sanders or Elizabeth Warren. A lot of people give me hell for saying Elizabeth Warren, but let me tell you, I want a home for people who don't like who have not yet understood that it's not about Bernie, but it's about policy. and they just can't see themselves. For Bernie, reposit yourself with our good friend Elizabeth Warren. Because I'm going to tell you something. What we need is transformational change. And every time you hear one of these centrists says, oh, American doesn't want a revolution. No, Americans suffer in silence, people. Americans know how to suffer in silence. You know, one of the good things that when you do a show like this, let me tell you what happens a lot. I get a lot of emails. And a lot of these emails are people that are saying, thank you for saying that, but I couldn't have said that myself. A lot of people call and they'll tell you, I just don't have the guts. I don't want people to know this, but here's what's happening. I've started to get people to start to say, okay, I'll go tell my story. I'll go tell my healthcare story or whatever. You know? It's real, people. We have to stop suffering in silence. One of the reasons I come and I actively tell you, oh, I have a wife with lupus. I've gone through this stuff with the healthcare industry all my life. From the time I had my company and had to pay those, I tell those stories. My daughter who just had a stroke, I tell that story. My daughter's 3-day bill in the intensive care was $72,000. I tell the story because Americans have to know that this can happen to anyone. A 28-year-old with a darn stroke. It could be your daughter. And it could change your world. My mother-in-law, 30 days before my daughter got a stroke, my mother-in-law got a stroke, and my daughter diagnosed her stroke. She died 2 weeks after that. And you know what they did in the hospitals? These efficient private hospitals, as they were feeding her through her feeding tubes, you know what they did? That room was filled up with food that would never be used because they were maximizing what they could take from Medicare. Private insurance, private companies. Stop talking about how inefficient the government is. Stop talking about the government as it's something bad. Government is we the people. But you know who pilfer we the people? The corporations in their necessity to have ever-growing growth, unearned growth for Wall Street. Look, please, Super Tuesday, share along and make sure to vote appropriately. Let's not continue the con. Let's please not continue the con. Because I tell you folks, there is only one way. There's only one way to solve it. Only one way to solve it. And that is to vote the right way on Super Tuesday. Vote the right way going forward. And if we do that, if we just do that, there ain't no stopping the transformational change. It's a movement that we need to have. It's a movement that we must have. So folks, this was just an extended version of our Politics Done Right from 3 o'clock. Tomorrow I'll be on at KPFT 90.1 FM, both on air and on the internet. We'll be all here as well. Please tune in. We're going to be talking about how Super Tuesday seemed to be going. But here in Texas, Biden has brought out the big guns. He brought all of them to Dallas. He brought Beto O'Rourke. Beto O'Rourke was disappointing. Beto O'Rourke, I think, damaged himself for the potential governor of Texas. I don't know if that can happen again. I'll have to see. Maybe he'll give me an interview again. I don't know. But my concern is not for the politician. My concern is for us all, the people. The people, las personas, por favor, mi gente, cuando van a votar mañana, por favor, no olvides de tu propia economía. Es imperativo que buscas tu propia economía y que esa economía que vas a buscar, por la cual vas a votar, es la persona apropiada. Y saben todos que no es nadie en el centro, no es nadie que se llama el moderado. Please, tomorrow make the right vote. Make the right vote. Make the right vote. And Biden isn't the right vote in this primary at all. He is a centrist that will be, from a healthcare standpoint, be destructive to your personal economy. Please do remember that. Folks, good night. Please share. Please tell folks what you've heard tonight. And please, let's get busy. And for those of you who are just listening, if you want to contribute to this show, if you're on YouTube, just click on the $ and go ahead and be a part. No, Bernie's not a communist, and Maru Telis, he's not a communist at all. You know that. He's not a communist at all. He believes in a very strong social safety net, which I'm pretty sure you yourself need. So folks, do the right thing tomorrow. It is existential for your personal economy. My name is Egberto Willis. This is Politics Done Right, and I am clocking out right now. Thank you so kindly for listening to me tonight. You guys have a wonderful, wonderful